Canterbury's 25, 4 or 5 yards outside Canterbury 25, and Mr. Breers, the referee, has awarded a penalty kick to South Sydney for offside play by some of the inside backs of the Canterbury side. They moved up rather quickly in defence. Well, Greg McMillan will attempt the goal from the South Sydney side. Goes the kick, and it's quite successful and very well distanced. It went over into the crowd, and so South Sydney lead. South Sydney lead after
kicked by Greg McMillan.
A few minutes by 2-0. And a very, very fine goal, line kick there has taken play on the far side of the field, about 3 or 4 yards out from the South Sydney goal line. And there a scrum will go in towards the sideline, and this is a vital scrum for South Sydney. They have an ex-Canterbury long service player hooking for them in Fred Anderson, who's reputed in Sydney circles to be one of the best hookers in rugby league. Anyway, Canterbury managed to win that scrum. And here we have a penalty against South Sydney inside backs for standing off field, and Mr. Breers has run infield, probably 15-20 yards from where that scrum went down, to award the penalty virtually underneath the goal posts to Canterbury Bankstown. And this would be a very, very easy kick for Terry Johnson, Roger Pearman, the goal kicker. He's got a very, very easy kick. Here he comes. And that's a kick, and I think somebody up on the railway yards will be able to get that ball. It went straight over onto the railway line.
Goal for Canterbury Bankstown, kicked by Terry Johnson.
So after only 6 minutes play, we have the score of 2-all. The scrum going down 7 or 8 yards in from touch. Canterbury on the left of your screen, South Sydney on the left of your screen, Canterbury on the right. The scrum won by South Sydney, and young Johnson is receiving a bit of treatment there. Young Robinson, that is, the South Sydney halfback. And I feel, yes, quite rightly, the referee has awarded a penalty for a kick in the play of the ball. Under an amendment to the Rugby League play the ball rule only brought in the last 7 or 8 days, players of the defending team may move forward the moment that the ball is dropped. Previously, they had to wait until the ball was heeled back in a play the ball. And very, very heavily tackled. Canterbury's fullback, Dick Wells, attempted to run the ball out from that penalty. Both sides are moving the ball about quite well. Probably the wind, the windy conditions, and believe me, it's very, very cold here. South Sydney 25 dropout, a long one over the halfway line, taken by Wells, the Canterbury fullback. He runs up, tackled on halfway. Canterbury have the ball, moving it out along their line. Ralph Harding tackled in possession there, purchased from Parramatta this year for a very low fee, a very fast forward, and has done very well. Canterbury in possession, a strong tackle by Sattler and Bill McCarthy. Bob McCarthy. Gartner gives the ball out to his backs. They're attempting to move forward, but South Sydney are up very fast in defence, tackling very well. Very young, youthful side. Gartner attempts the kick, and quite a good one. Yes, he's gained himself 25 yards there. Well, that's a penalty to South Sydney. I think it's quite obvious why that was. The Ken Dawson, the Canterbury prop forward, came back from an offside position and interfered with the ball, so that he obviated South Sydney's chance of getting at a ball that had been dropped by another Canterbury player. Well, this isn't rugby, so he got his penalty. Well, this is a kick, quite a lengthy one. He'll have to aim to the right of the post. The ball will swing from right to left as he kicks it. Moves in and kicks, and it's a good kick, a very fine kick indeed. This fellow McMillan for South Sydney, who's doing the kicking, keeps a much lower trajectory with his kick, and the ball as a result is not quite so much affected by the wind. And with the first caution of the match, and not for dirty play of any description, just for incorrect feeding, I think any halfback that doesn't attempt during a game to give his side some advantage in putting the ball in the scrum isn't possibly doing the best that he can for his team. Certainly all halfbacks do attempt this, so human nature comes into this. It's another penalty to Canterbury Bankstown, the chance to even the score at 4 points all. Terry Johnson will attempt this goal. It's quite a long one. This is about a 43 or 4 yard kick. He'll have to allow for the wind, and if he kicks it as high as he did last time, the wind will affect this quite badly. It's gone up, and it's a fine kick, a very, very fine kick. Evens the score after, shall we say, 19 minutes, 4 points all. So Canterbury are by no means laying down in this game. They're holding their own with the South Sydney side, just in field and about 6 yards in from the Canterbury goal line. Prop's a little bit eager there, striking a little quickly. The ball wasn't able to get in. Won by South Sydney. And the halfback flicked the ball back to the lock forward then, who attempted to go the blind side but was tackled quite well. Robinson gets it to Fowler. Fowler is tackled quite heavily. Canterbury appear to be moving up rather quickly here to me. The ball's going out now along the South Sydney line. Bob McCarthy has gone in to score. Ron Coote has gone in to score after a fine run from Bob McCarthy. Greg McMillan, the easiest of kicks. The score now after that is South Sydney 7, Canterbury 4, and I should think it'll be 9-4 after this kick. Yes, it's 9-4, a very fine kick. The ball went right out of the ground into some tall trees growing behind the goalposts in that area.
By Greg McMillan.
After about 24 minutes play, we have South Sydney leading Canterbury Bankstown 9 points to 4. Freddie Anderson, the ex-Canterbury Bankstown hooker, now hooking for South Sydney, is usually a dummy half. He's number 12, as you'll see. The ball goes out. And number 9, Coote, a very strong run. This lad is a particularly strong runner, very nearly forced his way over. South Sydney are attacking strongly here at the moment. Powell gets it out to Bob McCarthy, who goes in to score wide out for South Sydney. And this is a very good break for South Sydney. Probably do the game a lot of good. Not that I'd like to see the Australian team beaten, of course. McMillan comes in with his kick, and it's a fine kick, a really superb kick. And that makes his 5th goal for South Sydney, and I don't think I've seen a better goal kick this season than that. It was a scrum penalty there, and Canterbury have possession. They're kicking for touch. It's not a good kick, but beautifully taken by Greg Christensen, the South Sydney fullback, who's run the ball back up over halfway, and a very, very fine run, and very well applauded by this quite good crowd here today. South Sydney fast switches of play out to Sattler. Sattler gets the ball to Bill McCarthy, and McCarthy is pushed into touch only a few yards outside the Canterbury 25. Another scrum win to South Sydney. They're getting all the ball this second half. It's going to be a very tired Canterbury side by the end. Now to Bill McCarthy, to Bob McCarthy, brother Bob. Bill running from dummy half. A very fine young footballer, this lad. It's the ball to Arthur Brannigan, who's dumming and dives and scores a fine try. Now that was a really first-class individual effort. McMillan is going to attempt this goal. He moves in, and immediately after this, there's the kick. And a fine kick again. That's McMillan's 6th goal. Scrum going down just on the Canterbury 25, and this is one of the few scrums they've won, and they've dropped the ball in the centre, and Souths have regained possession. And there's Ron Sattler running through, gets the ball out to Ron Coote, who gets the ball into Bob McCarthy, and Bob McCarthy runs round and scores a very, very fine try underneath the goalpost. This was good football. This is a very fine young South Sydney team, and believe me, while the scores may be getting away from the Canterbury side, to see a young South Sydney side, to see any young side come out and perform as creditably as this South Sydney side does, it gives me a great deal of pleasure as somebody very keen on rugby league, because I feel that if we can keep young teams like this coming on with just the odd veteran in them, the place of St George or teams such as St George will not be so assured, and who knows, one of a team such as Balmain or South Sydney could get up this year. On this form, South Sydney are a definite chance to do something good in the semi-finals, and I only hope they can carry on with this form they're showing today. Greg McMillan has another attempted goal. This will be his 8th. No doubt about that one. Right up on the goal, over the goalpost, over the wall, onto the railway line. He doesn't make any bones about it when he kicks. And the South Sydney will put the ball in. Robinson to put it in. The ball is in, and another ball to Canterbury. This is good. They had the last 3 scrums. And let's see what they can do with possession. They're not moving. They're not moving when they get the ball. That's the only thing. They're just not moving forward. They're lining a little deep. It's a penalty kick to Canterbury. Anderson out to Richie Powell. That balding head going through strongly, hard, bang, down the side. And a foolish pass at the end of it. Canterbury in possession. And South, Mick Fowler, the South captain, stole the ball from Greaves there. Actually took the ball out of his hands and dived for the line, but the linesman ruled that he'd gone into touch, so that would have been adding insult to injury. So the scrum now goes down only a few yards out from the Canterbury line, and Souths have possession. It's going out along their back line to Brannigan. Brannigan works the ball back into Christensen, the fullback who came in to make the extra man. But here's Sattler going in. It looks to me, no, he just stopped short of the line. It's and there's a try for South Sydney. Yes, a quick play the ball. Sattler made a very strong run, ran up the sideline, towards the sideline, and was tackled, got up very quickly to play the ball, showing the value of a quick play the ball, and ultimately I'll get the
South Sydney was scored by Dennis Lee.
Yes, Dennis Lee. I was just waiting for that identification to come over there. Dennis Lee, a replacement in the South Sydney side, got to the play the ball quickly and was able to force his way over. So South Sydney now go to 31 points, and Canterbury remain on 4. McMillan has another kick coming. This is almost similar to the last kick he had from the try scored by Brannigan about 10 minutes ago. It won't be an easy one, but he's done one this afternoon, so we'll assume that he can do 2. There's been several fine performances turned in this afternoon, and I'm going to be making an award. No, the kick is unsuccessful. I'm going to be picking out my best player on the day, who will receive an award from Anthony Hordens, the senior store, of £15 or $30 worth of goods from any one of their stores. And don't forget anyone that identified the spectator, Spot the Spectator, that we had earlier on, the gentleman in the glasses in the grandstand here. Don't forget to tell him, because he's got to turn up to Epping tomorrow to receive his order on Ron Bennett's clothing stores, or any one of the clothing stores, of £15. And everybody knows that Ron Bennett's clothing is first class and of a very high standard. Now we're back to the football, and Freddie Anderson, the ex-Canterbury players, run amok. I don't think anyone would accuse Fred of being fast, certainly not the people up here from Belmore who know him very well. And he played for this club for many years, but he made a burst of 15 or 20 yards, then waving his arms quite madly, and looked rather impressive and formidable. There's been a very heavy dump then of one of the South Sydney players Fred Anderson, the South Sydney hooker, very heavily dumped by a Canterbury player then, but Canterbury have the penalty. It's a short one, and it's a bad kick. It goes straight into Arthur Brennigan, the South Sydney centre's hands, and he's stepping and darting and running, gets the pass out to Powell, who drops it, backed up by Bill McCarthy, who knocks the ball on, and there'll be another scrum. You can see that scrum has collapsed underneath there, and you can see also the loose arms being adopted by the hookers. Neither of them were packing correctly on that occasion. Score here at Belmore Oval between Canterbury and South Sydney in the deferred competition game. South Sydney 31, Canterbury 4. And that appears to be the end of the game.